Who is ready for Ruben Amorim ball at Manchester United? First game against Ipswich. He's got an international break in charge to get these players going. What can we expect? What type of manager is it? How has his journey been at Sporting Lisbon? Why are we in this situation in the first place? All the following questions are about to be answered next. So let's start with why we're in this situation in the first place. I'm sure the majority of you guys know, but Erik ten Hag's departure was coming. The writing was on the wall for quite a long time. Maybe he should have gone before he actually did. When we isolate Erik ten Hag, his tactics, the squad, the 3 seasons that he had in charge, or 2.5, whatever you want to call it, I think the main kind of red flags in his tenure was inconsistent team selection. That was a big one. And midfield that got stretched, that lacks legs, out of possession, way too easy to play against. One of the worst teams in the league, I would probably say. No press, deep line, wingers too wide, not compact enough, not physical enough in terms of the profile of players that we've got. Despite having how many transfer windows and £600 million that had been spent, not clinical enough converting chances. So when you stack all them up, you're like, he's got to go. Then we dive into his record. So 128 games, 72 wins, 20 draws, 36 losses, 234 goals scored, 180 goals conceded, a Carabao Cup in 2023 and an FA Cup in 2024. One thing that confused me, which I don't really understand, is when we reflect over the summer and how Ineos, kind of dealt with this whole ten Hag situation. Because it was a difficult situation. He had won the FA Cup. There was a lot of emotion involved. But then, obviously, the results and the performances just were not improving. So it was kind of like they was really in limbo. And we as fans was in limbo for a while. And it was quite frustrating. But they decided to go with him. And the line they was putting out is no one's better than Erik ten Hag at this point. This is why we're going forward. That must be the answer, right? So, right, okay. Now, a couple months in, they're willing to buy a young coach out of the contract who was willing to move and almost did move to the Premier League in the summer with West Ham or Liverpool or whatever that scenario was. So that bit confused me. But, look, we're here now. Another manager has failed at this club. This is a graveyard for managers and players and anyone who visits it, unfortunately. But I suppose there's a bit of positivity, and I'll tell you why. So let's discuss lineup possibilities. Let's discuss tactical changes, strengths, concerns, and expected results under Ruben Amorim. So, we're going to start off with a breakdown of the manager. Currently top of the league, 10 matches, 110, 30 points, 35 goals scored, 7 clean sheets, 3 goals conceded, 3.5 goals per game, and an average of 65% possession. They've also just beat Manchester City in the Champions League. As a person, as an individual, his English is excellent. He's socially forward, handles the dressing room really, really well. You can see how much the players love him. The reactions from Ugarte and from Humland and all these guys who were talking about him. And anyone who's worked with him, a huge fan of him as a person. So that's his character. We've seen it in press conferences as well. He has that aura. He has the right character. And sometimes that was a criticism of Erik ten Hag, wasn't it? That he was a bit too head teacher-like. There's a plus side. Formation preferences, we all know by now. You guys have done your research. 3-4-3, sorry. More of a 3-5. Jesus Christ, I can't speak. More of a 5-2-3 against Manchester City. He was a bit more deeper and a bit more... I think they give him a little bit too much respect. But he actually said after the game, like, don't be expecting that. It's not going to be like that when I go to Manchester United. They're known for being one of the best build-up teams in Europe. Expect a high-pressing system with emphasis on the wing-backs. Ball possession with quick transitions. They're compact with and without the ball. Creativity is encouraged. Again, another highlight that we saw last night. And that forward three, the way he would link up, the patterns from kickoff. Nice to see. In the defensive structure, he built a solid back three to control the space and protect against counter-attacks and focus on pressing triggers and man marking to disrupt opponents' build-up. So there's a quick crash course on Ruben Amorim tactically. Now, when we look at our current crop of players, I suppose the million-dollar question is, who is going to fit in where, right? From goalkeeper to attack. So I think the goalkeeper will be absolutely fine. I think Andre Onana will be fine in this system. Just someone who's competent with the ball. Don't even necessarily have to be a sweeper keeper. Just good at building up from the back. And I think Onana, in fairness, now is one of the better keepers in the league. Joint in the Golden Glove race, I think, 4th. He made some massive saves against Crystal Palace, against Fenerbahce. He's earning his money at the minute. So Onana in net, I think, will be the go-to. I don't think there's any kind of debate on that, so that's absolutely fine. The defensive line is interesting because obviously we're going to switch to a back three. Now, the principles that Amorim asked for in his back three, comfortable on the ball, adept at breaking lines, crucial for build-up play. So with that said, I think Euro De Ligt and Martinez. De Ligt is a bit of a question mark for me because I have seen him suffer sometimes in a back 5, back 3 system, whether it's been for his Dutch national team, or I think Juventus may have played it as well. So he has struggled a little bit. But the others, I think Euro Martinez will be absolutely fine because they complement each other really well. Euro individually, you look at his strengths, very quick, good in defending channels, good on the ball, and yeah, he's got a physicality about him as well, and a young prospect. I'm sure he's desperate to work with. Lisandro Martinez complements the other side of that in terms of ball progression, taking it under pressure, brings that leadership element. So I think that'd be good, but I think there are a couple kind of minor tweaks that you may need to make. It's the wing-backs, I think, that's the biggest question mark. Dallow's an interesting one because Dallow has been criticised heavily defensively at times at his back post, 1v1, whereas when he's in the wing-back role, his main objective is to be that kind of frimpong, bomb forward, get balls into the box. Or not even necessarily balls into the box. I don't think Sporting Lisbon put a lot of crosses into the box, but just link up, offer that support, combine in triangles. I think that's what they'll be looking for. So I don't know if they're going to go for Dallow. In terms of the left wing back, there's talk about Garnacho or Antony. I don't know, but because I thought Jamie Carragher made a great point on Sky Sports when he was saying, what happens when you come up against an Arsenal and you've got to defend against a Saka and you're constantly being pushed back. That's conversations that you need to have. And again, we talk about small tweaks that you need to make. Something I'd be interested in. Antony, I don't think is a bad shout. Genuinely. I think he could be all right as a wing-back, and you might get a bit of that money back that you paid for him. I don't know. Maybe it's a long shot. Alternatively, if you want to go into the market and you want to go and get someone, Alphonso Davies is someone I would definitely look at. I think he'd be an ideal sign-in for what you want. Equally, Giovanni Guenda is someone to keep an eye on. He's a young wing-back, 17 years old at Sporting, so I'm sure there'll be links with him. We move into the midfield setup, double pivot. I think one of the names that's definitely going to be on the team sheet and won't surprise anyone is Manuel Ugarte. In the 22-23 season under Ruben Amorim, he ranked in the top 1% of midfielders in Europe for the following P90 metrics. So pass completion, 91.6, ball recoveries, 9.38, tackles and interceptions, 6.81, tackles attempted, 4.63, tackles won, 2.64, and shots created via defensive actions, 0.27. So I think he's going to be in the midfield, and I think you're going to see the best out of Manuel Ugarte in there. Now, in terms of the creative midfielder, I think it's going to be Kobbie Mainoo in there because I think he can operate in that system the best, but don't be surprised if you see a Bruno Fernandes or a Mount in there. But again, there's going to be conversations about the front three if they can fit in there as well. So I think Amorim, what he specifically wants from an 8 is to be proficient on the ball, capable of creating, playing direct passes, and feeding the attacking 5. That is the sole purpose of being there, right? But also be pretty inept, pretty confident defensively. Where does Casemiro fit into it? Rotation for Ugarte, I'd imagine. Now, the front 3 is interesting because he often uses a very narrow front 3 where there's 2 attacking 10s. So I think Ahmad as a right forward in the half space could be interesting because that's where he's comfortable and that's where he likes to operate anyway. Maybe Mason Mount will hit the heights like he did at Chelsea if he can stay fit. We saw he had his best season there. It was like 10 goals and 10 assists under Tuchel. So I think he may flourish in this system. Question marks about Marcus Rashford. I don't know. This is just a guessing game at this point. For your central striker, I think no doubt about it, it's going to be Højlund as the focal point. I think he could perform the Gyökeres role running the channels, which leaves Xerxes a big question mark around his future because I don't know if he fits in this or if he becomes one of the 10s, but I don't personally see it. But yeah, I think Højlund is basically Gyökeres in 6 years. That's what I feel like. He's a very raw Gyökeres as a striker. There's a lot of similarities in there. So I think Rasmus will be the player up top. Just a couple of key stats to look out for in terms of Sporting. So possession and passing, they average over 55% under Ruben Amorim, which could be similar at United, but less likely given how competitive the Premier League is. His teams have high passing accuracy, especially in forward areas, so being clinical and ruthless might be hard to be, with the current crop of players. I'm going to keep referencing this, but we all spoke about Ten Hag and how great he was, and on all the stats at Ajax, he came over to United and he shit the bed. So just something to keep in mind. But when we take a look at Amorim's pressing and defensive stats in the 2021 season, they only conceded 20 goals in 34 league games, the fewest goals in the Premier League that season. So not just great at pressing and attacking, he's got the defensive side as well. Obviously, they're known, as I touched on at the start, for their pressing style. In his title-winning season, Sporting consistently ranked high in the PPDA, which is passes allowed per defensive action, a metric indicating a high pressing approach. So all good stuff there. His teams often limit opponents' shots and try to force errors high up. In Amorim's system, wing-backs often contribute goals and assists, meaning whoever plays there, like a Chilwell and Reece James under Tuchel, you can imagine their stats going right up, and they could be looked at a completely different light, but just depends who goes in there. They average 2.35 points per game, a club record for points per game in a single season. This efficiency in picking up points was key to securing their title, and Amorim took Sport into the Champions League round of 16 in the 21-22 season, where they were eliminated, ironically, by Manchester City. This was the first time Sporting advanced past the group stage since 2008 and 2009. Showcasing their growth on the European stage under Ruben Amorim, not just league positions. What's his man management style like? We spoke about his character a little bit, but in terms of working with players, what is Ruben Amorim like? Youth development. Let's focus on that for a moment. So he's promoted, a lot of youngsters into the first team. Nuno Mendes is one who's arguably one of the better left-backs in Europe at the minute for PSG. I'm a huge fan of him. Gonçalo Inácio is another one, top player. Mateus Nunes. You've seen loads of players go from Sporting that he's kind of worked with and that he's had his touch. And so, some of the players that surprised. You look at the net spend that he's worked with at Sporting. It's like minus 150 million or something crazy. So, yeah, he knows how to work with young players. And obviously, you'd expect with United's current crop of young players, your Garnachos, your Amads, your Mainus, for them to get significant roles and push to the maximum potential, which Ineos would be delighted about. And likewise with the fan base, he builds close connections with the players, gives trust, but demands discipline and the right kind of balance. And that's exactly what you need in this team. Someone they respect, someone they look up to, someone they will listen to. Again, I don't think Ten Hag had that quality. I think he was missing that slightly. And look, he's going to need time, first and foremost. He's going to need a lot of time to establish authority, especially with the United senior players, your Brunos, your Casemiros, your Rashfords you can throw into that category. And that's been the tricky sticking point for a lot of coaches. They play for you for a year, for 16 months or what have you, and then it's just like they don't fancy it. So it's crucial he gets given authority and isn't undermined at any stage. I'm not making this a PR piece about Ruben Amorim. I am going to discuss potential concerns. So obviously, Premier League experience, non-existent. Limited in the top 5 leagues at best. He's managed Braga, he's managed Sporting and a couple of other teams. So a high-profile club. I know Sporting are relatively big in Portugal, but Porto and Benfica are considered the big teams. So big club management is something to consider. Adaptability of United's current squad, which I've also kind of touched on. Current players may struggle with the system to adapt. They may have to go. Some of your favourites may have to go. But if that needs to be done in order to play a certain style and identity, I'm absolutely with it. Like I said, with the Ajax thing, he couldn't... literally, Ten Hag said to the media, I cannot replicate what I did at Ajax with these players. Tactical discipline is another one. If players don't buy into this high-energy style and what he wants to kind of implement, it could backfire, especially with the fixture schedule and how relentless it is. It's tricky to get your ideas across mid-season when it's so congested in it. I don't know how he's going to do it. So I'm sure that the first 6 months or until the end of the season, it's going to be patchy. And again, we're going to be talking about it's a transitional end to the season. We'll really see what it's like in the summer and and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's difficult to come in and really have a giant impact. And then I know his first game's Ipswich, but then in December, I think you play Arsenal, you play Manchester City again, which is going to be a lot of eyeballs on. And then I think it's Liverpool, who are flying at the minute, and top of the table, smashing everyone in Europe. And we have them, I think, the 1st of January when we go into the new year. So you can already see the narratives being painted. So yeah, there's a couple of concerns there for Ruben Amorim. Potential positive impacts. I think he's going to bring some modernised tactics, which we as a fan base have been craving for a while. Fresh tactical ideas that can almost cure this stagnated play style. Youth investment. I think the fans will appreciate seeing the younger guys given a chance. Maybe an Amas will come into the wing-back role, who have not even spoken about yet. But if there's one good thing at United at the minute, it's Carrington and all the work they're doing there. So the more we can get out of that, the better it is for all parties. Consistency in lineup is something that we struggled with under Ten Hag. We never knew the centre-backs were going to be. We never knew what the makeup of the midfield was going to be. Amorim likes to stick with a core system. giving players clarity on roles, which is mega, because the majority of successful teams, and I've referenced them before, I don't have to go through them, they know their starting 11 week in, week out. Of course, there's rotation. Of course, there's going to be chops and changes everywhere. But we don't have that, and that needs to be pinpointed. So hopefully I've covered a decent basis there for you guys. A bit of a long one, this, actually. I'm just looking at it. But yeah, quite a lot of stuff to dive into. If there's anything I've missed, if there's anything that you guys want to discuss personally, you know, whether it's to do with formation, playstyle, potential challenges, personality, adaptation to the Premier League, signings is something I've not really spoken about, but I'm happy. You know, I think, does he go back in and raid Sporting? Does he go in for Gyökeres? Does he go in for Trincao? Does that have similarities with what Ten Hag did with Sandro Martinez and Anthony? It's a bit of a fight in your head in that regard. But I'd love your feedback, whether you think Ruben Amorim is a good fit for Manchester United or not. Will he succeed in the high-stake environment that Old Trafford has crushed many managers in? Yeah, it's a huge job, probably the biggest job in the world. But I suppose it's off to the right start by beating Man City 4-1 and basically just ignoring Gary Cottrell in a press conference. So more of that, please. We've got an international break to really work with the players, and let's see what happens against Ipswich. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel and check out our other videos that we've got at the moment. And I will see you guys in the next one.